New Salem was a small village, but to Lincoln it seemed large and bustling. The store was a place where people gathered. Lincoln quickly became popular. People trusted him. He would never take advantage of anyone, even for a few cents. He joined a debating club and took part in town politics. He also went to the meetings of the local court. The justice of the peace began asking his opinion on cases, because what he said was always so funny. But his opinions were also very intelligent. Soon people began coming to Lincoln for legal advice. Lincoln didn't just impress people in town. Some rough farm boys, called the Clary's Grove Gang, had heard about Lincoln, the young man everyone was praising so much. They wanted to take him down a peg, so they challenged him to a wrestling match. We don't know whether Lincoln won or lost, but the way he took on the whole gang won the boys over. They became his friends and loyal supporters, too. In 1832, Lincoln's friends convinced him to run for the Illinois state legislature. He didn't win, but he came close. In the meantime, Offutt's store failed, and Lincoln lost his job. Just then, a war broke out between the Illinois settlers and Native Americans. Lincoln joined the militia. He never actually fought any battles, but he boasted about all the blood he'd shed, because of the mosquitoes. He decided to run for the state legislature again. He could count on support from all his friends in New Salem. But some farmers thought he was just a town fellow who didn't know how to work in the fields. So Lincoln pitched in with the harvest. That won him the farmers' votes. And he could count on the Clary's Grove Gang to make sure their friends would vote for him too. This time, Lincoln won. Lincoln decided he would be a better representative if he knew more about law. So he began to read law books. Although he never studied law formally, Lincoln taught himself enough to earn his law license by studying every spare second of the day. Often he studied while lying on his back, with his long legs resting on the trunk of a tree. As the sun moved, he followed it around the tree. Chapter 3. A Member of Congress. In 1837, Lincoln moved to Springfield, the new state capital. Springfield was still a frontier town with log cabins. Pigs ran loose on the dirt roads. But it was the biggest place Lincoln had ever lived in. It even had a bookstore. He worked at a friend's law firm where he kept track of the paperwork. He wasn't very good at this. He had a habit of carrying important papers around inside his tall stovepipe hat. Sometimes he lost them. The state government was only in session for part of the year, and there wasn't enough business in Springfield for a lawyer to live on. So, like most Western lawyers, Lincoln had to travel to towns all around the state. Twice a year, a judge visited all the towns that were too small to have their own courts. Lincoln joined the group of lawyers who followed the judge's route. Everyone traveled together. At night, they all crowded into small, rough inns. Sometimes 20 men had to squeeze into one room. Lincoln often slept on the floor. After a few days, the group would move on. Sometimes the roads were so bad they had to walk. Because Lincoln had such long legs, his companions made him wade across streams first to find out how deep they were. Lincoln didn't mind the bad food or the rough life. He liked meeting people. He impressed them with his funny stories, his friendliness, his skill, and his honesty. "If you cannot be an honest lawyer," he said, "resolve to be honest without being a lawyer." Lincoln was a strong supporter of the Whig Party. The Whigs wanted a stronger central government. They said the government should encourage and pay for improvements that would make the country work better. Soon, he became one of the most important party members in Illinois. Wherever he went, he worked hard campaigning for Whig candidates. He knew thousands of voters by name. Lincoln was comfortable with most people, but he was shy and awkward around young women. A couple of years after he moved to Springfield, he met Mary Todd at a party. Although he stepped all over her feet when they danced together, Mary liked Lincoln. She was a Southern belle who, at 21, was very eager to get married. Pretty and lively, she put Lincoln at ease by doing most of the talking herself. Mary was more interested in politics than most women of the time. She often said that she wanted to marry a man who would be president. They were married on November 4th, 1842. Lincoln joked about how strange it was that anyone would marry him. "Nothing new here," he wrote to a friend, "except my marrying, which to me is a matter of profound wonder." On Mary's wedding ring, Lincoln engraved, "Love is eternal." At first the couple lived in a hotel, but soon they bought a house. It was tiny and not very fancy. Still, it was the first house Lincoln had ever owned. 9 months after the marriage, their first child, Robert, was born. 2 years later, they had a second son, Edward, who died at age 3. Eventually they had a third son, Willie, and a fourth, Thomas. When Thomas was born, his head was so large that Lincoln thought he looked like a tadpole. So the boy was nicknamed Tad. Both parents spoiled their children. When Lincoln brought the boys into his law office, they dumped ashtrays and inkstands on the floor. They piled up papers and danced on them. Lincoln's partner said he sometimes wanted to wring their little necks. But Lincoln never scolded his boys.